Hello, happy Wednesday to you all. So today we're going to continue our series on has prejudice increased over time? We're going to talk about our third and final type of prejudice that is described in social psychology. So the top here says benevolent plus hostile equals ambivalent prejudice. I'm going to break that down really quickly in just a second. So the definition of benevolent prejudice is this is a perception that members of certain groups have positive qualities that should be praised and valued. Benevolent prejudice can be condescending and paternalistic toward the outgroup, which results in unfair standards, harsh judgment, and restricted opportunities. So that essentially what that means is that the majority or the in group is deciding what positive qualities the other group has, and then they judge them by what they think they should be like. We'll do an example in a second. Hostile sexism is when an individual exhibits overtly aggressive behavior toward or dispenses hard judgment toward women who do not fit prescribed gender stereotypes. And again, we will delve into this more throughout this lesson. So when we think about benevolent prejudice, this is when group members fail to live up to unfair standards. Okay, so this can be put on them by the in-group majority group, and they will be judged harshly. In addition, the stereotype of what people of the group should be like, it restricts opportunities for the group. So a lot of the focus when it comes to benevolent prejudice is on benevolent sexism. Okay? And so consider these positive stereotypes of women. Positive is in quotes because it's who's deciding they're positive. Gentle, pretty, kind, polite, and pure. Okay? It's pretty clear that a man defined those qualities. People with high levels of benevolent sexism believe that most women possess these qualities and that women should possess these qualities. And women who fit this model are then praised and liked. So if under benevolent prejudice, people who fit that model are praised a lot and liked by the person who holds that benevolent prejudice. So this the topic, why isn't what if my wife isn't like that? So here's where hostile sexism comes in. So if you don't adhere to that really those positive qualities that I defined, you will then either judge or have aggressive behavior toward the woman who does not fit this. Okay, so a study done in 2004 by Masser and Abrams found that employers with high levels of hostile sexism gave women poor evaluations if those women didn't fit sexist expectations at work. Those same employers did not respond well to female applicants for jobs traditionally held by men. So maybe if a woman was a supervisor or a different type of job, when they were able to do these studies, they found that if an employer had a high level of hostile sexism, which means that that employer had some expectations about what women should be like, if the women didn't fit those expectations, they were given poor evaluations. Okay? Men who are high in hostile sexism are more accepting of sexual harassment and domestic violence toward women, and they are much more likely to blame rape victims for being raped. Okay? And we see this happening still today in our criminal justice system where women are oftentimes blamed for being raped or being assaulted. So just below, I provided my citations for that third bullet because those are different studies: the sexual harassment, domestic violence, and rape victims. Act like a lady. So this is, there's this idea that women are either virtuous angels or sinful devils. And this idea has been called the virgin whore dichotomy, right? So one or the other, or the Madonna whore complex, in which Madonna refers to the Christian Virgin Mary. So when people view good women from a benevolent perspective, right, kindness, grace given to them, but are hostile to women who fail to meet these standards, they are showing what is called ambivalent sexism. And this is a combination of hostile and benevolent sexism that occurs when an individual views good women from a benevolent perspective, a kind, loving perspective, but is hostile to women who don't meet those standards. So, they say, well, I respect all women except those who don't act like women, based on that individual's definition of what a woman should act like, which is probably not very accurate. But nonetheless, you get the idea, right? In 2016, scores on a measure, so they measured people's ambivalent sexism. They found that people who scored their scores on ambivalent sexism could tell them whether or not that person was going to vote for Hillary Clinton. That study would suggest that people felt like she wasn't acting how they wanted a woman to act. And you saw this, people judging her clothes, people judging the way she talked. She was too aggressive. She was rude, right? All kinds of things that we don't really say about men politicians. We saw that apply to Hillary Clinton in 2016. So the main idea here is that ambivalent prejudice is made up of two aspects. The first is benevolent prejudice, which is the belief that members of some groups possess positive qualities that should be protected. Hostile prejudice occurs when members of those stereotyped groups do not fulfill expectations and are thus judged particularly harshly. So that is the cap. That's going to end off our three different types of prejudice. So we see that old-fashioned has been gone. That's what a social psychologist would argue. That's mostly gone because it still happens. But these two have replaced that one. So the critical thinking questions for this week are really going to, or the one of them is going to really challenge you to think about these ideas and kind of mesh with them, because hopefully you have a good understanding of them and you can make connections to what's happening right now. I really don't want to give a political commentary on the current situation. I want to give you the information that I believe you need to really assess the situation, as I'm sure your history teachers would love to talk about the historical context of racism and violence and rioting in this country, but that's not my job today. This is to give you the psychology. I hope you enjoyed this series, and I look forward to seeing you all next week.